All right. Hey, everybody. It's Mary Gallagher. I'm the co-author of Teach a Child to Read with Children's Books. I wanted to share something really important with you today, and that I want to talk to you quickly about the difference between a skill and a strategy. Okay, so those are two very separate things, but sometimes people use them interchangeably. And it's really important that when we're talking about teaching reading, we understand the difference between these two things. So there's a really kind of a popular article going around the internet and on Facebook about an adult who realized that she was using some strategies that she had used to teach herself to read that she saw being implemented in the classroom. And then she goes on to say, like, oh my gosh, those are just strategies that I made up for myself, and no wonder children aren't learning to read because we're really not teaching them the right things, and children are coming up with like all these workarounds on their own. And so this is important to understand because here I'm going to try to give you a couple examples that would relate to us as adults when we're learning something new. So remember, children are learning to read. They're learning something new almost every single day, and they're practicing it. They don't have all the skills that they need down pat yet, so we give them strategies to help them get to where they want to be, to help them make progress towards that skill. The important thing is once they reach that skill, once they can do the things that they need to do in order to be fluent readers and comprehending readers and engaged and confident readers, they're not going to need those strategies anymore. So when you and I read, we might use a few strategies still, like for comprehension, but for the most part, we're not using any strategies to decode or read fluently, right? Unless we come across a really hard word we've never seen before, we slow down, we break it up into chunks, we kind of go back to our kid days and we try to sound it out, or we see if it's really important, and if it's not, like a strange name, we just kind of skip over it and keep on going because we know it doesn't impact our comprehension. We don't have to employ all kinds of strategies like break it up into chunks, sound it out, look at the pictures, look at the words around it, read to the end of the sentence and come back. We don't have to do those things as adults because we're already fluent readers. So in other words, we already have the skill of fluency. We don't need the strategies. So if you think of strategies as kind of like things, hand-holding, sometimes we refer to this as scaffolding as well. So if a student can do this, but I want to get them to do this, I might give them something in between to help them get to that next level. That's scaffolding. So in other words, let me take this down to something I'm going to share with you a skill that the worst skill that I cannot do, and I've tried a lot of times in my life, is ice skating. Okay, so ice skating I'm just terrible at. My knees buckle, my ankles buckle. I'm always walking around with just a cold, wet behind, and I feel miserable the whole time I'm there, and I'm embarrassed. So when I was back in junior high days, my friends wanted me to go ice skating with them. They were ice skaters because they did that, and they practiced that. They practiced that skill all the time. They knew I wasn't going to be able to stand up on the ice with them. So my goal was to just stand up on the ice and not fall down on my butt, right? So they gave me a chair, and I was able to walk around and kind of sort of skate around on the ice with them where I wasn't falling, I wasn't embarrassed, and I wasn't wet and miserable, and I could hang out with them on the ice rink. Now, was I at the same skill level as my friends who were flipping and twirling and doing all the things that they had been doing because they took ice skating lessons? No. Was I really ice skating? Well, for my skill level, I was ice skating. I was staying on the ice, I was moving my legs across the ice, and I was standing up. What they gave me was a strategy to stay on my feet. They gave me the chair. So that's the difference between a skill and a strategy. Eventually, once I practiced enough, I could let go of, let's say, the chair, and I could just hold on to their arm, and then they could let go of me. And then I could eventually be skating around the rink without the chair. So it's the same thing with children. So if we say something like, look at the picture, look at the words surrounding it, look at the first letter, the last letter, try to guess at the word. A lot of people think that that's a bad thing to tell children. It's not a bad thing to tell children. That's like giving them a chair on the ice skating rink. It's just a strategy the goal for them, the skill we want them to develop, obviously, is to be a fluent reader. But they cannot come out of the gate and become a fluent reader right away, because they are going to encounter so many words, especially if you're using real children's books and quality children's books and not contrived phonics books. They're going to encounter words that they haven't seen before, with sounds and letters and combinations and all those exceptions to all those phonics rules that they can't sound out. So we've got to give them some other strategies. So for example, if a child is reading along and they come to the word bear, as in B-E-A-R, they may know the B, but they may know the R, but they're a little thrown off by that E-A in the middle because they haven't learned that vowel combination yet. They may even try to say beer and know that that's not a word and know it's not making sense. But we can say something like, well, what is this story about? Or who's the main character in the story? Or even take a look at the picture. What do you see in the story that would begin with the B sound and end with the R sound? And then they can say, oh, bear. And that fills in that gap for them. So those are strategies that we give to children. That's not the ultimate goal. Ultimately, children are going to stop looking at pictures. They're going to stop guessing. They're going to stop using context clues, because the fluency and the decoding is going to become automatic. We call that automaticity. They won't need any of those strategies anymore, just like you don't need those strategies when you read, or maybe you don't need a hand to hold or a chair to hold on to when you ice skate like I do. So that is the big difference. So when you read an article by someone who is, let's say, dismissing or even speaking strongly against using strategies like context clues, skip the word and come back to it, put a placeholder there, you look at the picture, they're doing a disservice to you as a parent or a teacher trying to teach reading. They're doing a disservice to children who they're assuming should somehow have all these skills right out of the gate. The problem with that is we hold children back from reading quality books if we only introduce them to words and books that they absolutely can only sound out. Phonics is a very important part of literacy instruction, but it is not the only part. Children need to be able to use all the other cueing systems. We talk about that in the book, Teach a Child to Read with Children's Books. However, what I wanted you to get from this today is that strategies are different than skills. So yes, our goal is that our child should read with automaticity, flow through the words, and have fluency. But until they're at that level, which usually does not happen until somewhere around that end of first grade, early second grade range, they're still working on fluency all the way through second grade. We need to give them strategies. And so there's nothing wrong with saying to a beginning reader or an emerging reader, take a look at the picture, use the letters that sounds that you know, and what do you think that word could be? That's just a strategy. That's like my friends giving me the chair so that I could stay up on the ice and I could start to gain confidence as an ice skater. Your child needs to gain confidence as a reader. If my friends threw me out on the ice, didn't hold onto my hand or let me hold onto their arm or give me a chair, I'd be down on the ice, I'd be wet, I'd be cold, I'd have sore bruises, and I'd be embarrassed, and I would leave the ice skating arena. I would not try to learn. That's what happens to our children when we don't allow them to use strategies. They feel frustrated, they feel stuck, they're embarrassed, and they learn that reading is hard and they don't like it. We don't want our children to feel that way. So if we can give them strategies until their skills increase and they no longer read the strategies, then that is what we need to do for them. So don't let anyone tell you that those strategies are bad things. We are not replacing those strategies. We're not replacing phonics with those strategies. We're doing it all in tandem, but we're giving our children that hand to hold on to, that chair to hold on to, until they become fluent readers or fluent writers or strong comprehenders. So that's the difference between skills and strategies. If you guys have any questions, let me know. If you're watching this on the Teach a Child to Read Facebook page and you want more instruction like this, please join our Facebook group. It's Teach a Child to Read Facebook group, and we have lots of information in there and details, including bookmarks that you can print out so your children can learn to use these strategies as they're developing fluency. Thanks, everybody. Have a wonderful week. Keep reading.